My cousin begged me for a job, then stole my formulas, my photos, and $18,000 in product. When I asked her why, she laughed and said, "I was helping you build brand recognition." I stayed silent. That was 8 months ago. Today, she's broke, branded a felon, and sleeping on a twin mattress in a basement without Wi-Fi. I hired my cousin after she begged for help, and she repaid me by stealing my business, my products, and nearly my sanity. She showed up with tears and was practically on her knees begging for help. "My last job ghosted me. I just need a chance," she said. I swear I've changed. This was my cousin Talia, the same cousin who once forged my signature on a bank form, the same cousin who stole my senior prom dress and claimed she borrowed it after I found it balled up in the trunk of her car, covered in stains that made me gag. But family's family, right? At least that's what my mom says every time Talia crashes out and burns. And maybe part of me still remembered the way we used to braid each other's hair and make up dance routines in the living room. So against my better judgment, I said yes. I owned a small but thriving skincare brand, all handmade, oils, butters, herbal blends. What started as a booth at the farmer's market had turned into an online store that helped me pay off my student loans. I gave her inventory tasks, packing orders. I even let her sit in on product development meetings. She took notes, asked questions, told me she was inspired. I felt proud, like I was helping her get back on her feet. 2 months later, I got a DM. "Hey, isn't this your product?" Attached was a screenshot, a listing on Etsy. Same ingredients, same product name, same font, but a different shop name. She even used the same photos I had on my website. At first, I thought maybe she was experimenting, practicing what she learned. I was annoyed but willing to talk it through, until I realized she was selling it for half my price, and using my own photos. She didn't even bother taking new ones. I checked our inventory logs. Everything seemed normal. Then I spotted it, a duplicate entry. Same order ID listed twice. One marked shipped, the other damaged. She was faking damage reports, logging products as lost, then taking it home and selling it. I confronted her, and she denied everything. "That's not mine. Someone's copying you." I showed her screenshots, emails from her Etsy store, the same return address as her apartment. Her voice shook. Then she laughed. "Okay, so what? I was helping you build brand recognition." I just smiled, because I already had a plan. The day I got that DM, I started documenting. Screenshots, inventory sheets, security cam footage showing her taking boxes out after hours. I created a fake customer account, bought 2 of her listings, matched the product batches to ones missing from my inventory. I was done with her lies and filed a police report. Then I waited. She kept coming to work, pretending nothing happened, said she was planning a brand collaboration she'd surprise me with. Then came the knock. 2 officers, 1 search warrant for her apartment, which they had just visited. I didn't watch as they walked her out, but I heard her scream, said I ruined her future, said she was just trying to be like me. I should feel satisfied. Instead, I feel hollow, because I wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that people change, that second chances mean something, but some people don't want redemption. They want your spotlight, and the minute you let them too close, they'll steal everything that made you shine. I'm rebuilding now, auditing everything, hiring new help, slowly. She made bail. I heard from my aunt that she's blaming me for everything, but I have the receipts. Literally. She messaged me yesterday. "I hope you know I'm not done." I didn't respond, but I did change all my passwords and install a second set of cameras, because I knew it was the truth. She wasn't done. And what happened next changed the relationship of my family, forever. Screenshots, inventory sheets, security cam footage showing her taking boxes out after hours. I created a fake customer account, bought 2 of her listings, matched the product batches to ones missing from my inventory. I was done with her lies and filed a police report. Then I waited. My documentation was meticulous. I printed everything. The screenshots of her Etsy listings side by side with my website listings, showing identical products and descriptions. The inventory logs with her initials next to the suspicious damaged entries. The security footage, which I'd installed 6 months earlier after a break-in attempt, clearly showed her placing products in her personal backpack after hours. I had time-stamped footage from 5 different occasions. I even went through our sales records and identified a pattern of missing inventory that corresponded exactly with new listings in her shop. The evidence filled a 3-inch binder that I labeled with sticky tabs for easy reference. The weight of it in my hands felt reassuring, concrete proof that I wasn't imagining things, that my trust had indeed been violated. The police officer who took my report, a woman named Officer Chen with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, reviewed my evidence carefully. "This is one of the most well-documented cases of employee theft I've seen," she said, flipping through the binder. "Most people come in with just a suspicion and no proof. I wanted to be sure," I explained, my voice steadier than I felt. "She's family, and I needed to know I wasn't overreacting." Officer Chen nodded, understanding in her eyes. Family cases are always the hardest, but theft is theft, regardless of who commits it. She kept coming to work, pretending nothing happened, said she was planning a brand collaboration she'd surprise me with. Then came the knock. 2 officers, 1 search warrant for her apartment, which they had just visited. I didn't watch as they walked her out, but I heard her scream, said I ruined her future, said she was just trying to be like me. The morning of her arrest, Talia arrived at work as if nothing had happened. She wore a bright yellow sweater that made her look younger than her 26 years, her hair freshly colored with caramel highlights. She hummed as she organized the shipping station, arranging packing materials with unusual precision. "I've been thinking," she said casually as I checked inventory, her voice light and enthusiastic. "We should do a limited edition collection for spring, maybe something with cherry blossom and green tea. I sketched some label ideas last night." She pulled out a notebook with surprisingly detailed drawings of packaging concepts. I just nodded, my stomach in knots knowing knowing what was coming. Part of me wanted to give her a chance to confess, to make things right before the police arrived. But the larger part remembered all the previous chances, all the times she'd promised to change. The knock came at 10:17 a.m. 3 sharp raps on the glass door of the workspace. 2 uniformed officers stood outside, their expressions serious. Talia looked up, confusion crossing her face. "Are you expecting a delivery?" she asked, reaching for the door. I didn't answer, just watched as she opened it. Officer Chen introduced herself and her partner, then asked if Talia Morgan was present. The color drained from Talia's face as they explained they had a warrant for her arrest on charges of theft and fraud. "What? This is ridiculous," she sputtered, looking wildly between the officers and me. "There must be some mistake." "We've just come from your apartment, Ms. Morgan," the male officer said. "We found substantial evidence confirming the allegations." I turned away then, busying myself with organizing bottles on a shelf, unable to watch as they read her rights, but I couldn't block out her voice as the realization hit her. "You!" she gasped, and I could feel her eyes burning into my back. "You called the cops on your own family? After everything we've been through?" I didn't respond, my hands shaking as I arranged and rearranged the same row of bottles. "You've ruined my future," she screamed as they led her toward the door. "I was just trying to be like you. I looked up to you." The door closed behind them, but I could still hear her voice, growing fainter as they walked her to the police car. I sank onto a stool, suddenly exhausted, the weight of what I'd done, what I'd had to do, settling over me like a heavy blanket. I should feel satisfied. Instead, I feel hollow, because I wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that people change, that second chances mean something. But some people don't want redemption. They want your spotlight. And the minute you let them too close, they'll steal everything that made you shine. The workspace felt too quiet after she left. The familiar sense of essential oils and shea butter, usually comforting, now seemed cloying and overwhelming. I opened a window, letting in the cool spring air, trying to clear both the room and my head. I called my assistant manager Zoe and asked her to come in early. I couldn't bear to be alone with my thoughts. While waiting, I walked through the space, looking for signs of other things Talia might have taken or sabotaged. In the supply closet, behind a stack of shipping boxes, I found a notebook. Flipping it open revealed pages of notes about my business, supplier contacts, formula ratios, customer information, even my website login credentials that I'd foolishly let her use once when I was sick. The final pages contained a detailed plan titled Launch Strategy, outlining how she would gradually copy more of my products and eventually take over my customer base. My hands trembled as I read her meticulous plans to destroy everything I'd built. The careful handwriting, so neat and organized, somehow made it worse. This wasn't an impulsive act. She had calculated and planned this betrayal for weeks, all while smiling to my face and accepting my help. I'm rebuilding now, auditing everything, hiring new help, slowly. She made bail. I heard from my aunt that she's blaming me for everything, but I have the receipts, literally. She messaged me yesterday. "I hope you know I'm not done." I didn't respond, but I did change all my passwords and install a second set of cameras because I knew it was the truth. The rebuilding process was exhausting. I spent 3 days doing a complete inventory check, discovering that the theft was even more extensive than I'd initially realized. Talia had been systematically taking small amounts of raw ingredients, just enough that I wouldn't notice, to make products at home. My signature essential oil blend, which contained 15 different oils in precise proportions, was running mysteriously low. The special amber glass bottles I imported from a small supplier in Oregon were missing an entire case. I changed the locks on the workspace doors and installed a keypad entry system that logged who entered and when. The new security cameras covered every angle of the space, their small red lights blinking reassuringly in the corners of each room. I changed every password, email, website, social media, banking, supplier accounts, creating complex new ones and storing them in an encrypted password manager. Zoe helped me audit the customer database, looking for any signs of tampering or exported contact lists. We discovered that Talia had downloaded our entire customer list 2 weeks earlier, supposedly for a targeted email campaign she was planning. Now I worried she would contact them directly, spreading lies about my business or trying to poach them for her own venture. The message from Talia came late at night, just as I was finally falling asleep after days of stress-induced insomnia. The notification light on my phone pulsed in the darkness of my bedroom. "I hope you know I'm not done." 7 words that sent ice through my veins and chased away any chance of rest. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the air conditioner and the occasional car passing on the street below. The shadows in my room seemed deeper, more threatening. I got up and checked that my apartment door was locked, then wedged a chair under the handle, a precaution that felt silly, but necessary. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. I had 17 missed calls from various family members and a string of text messages. Most were angry, some were concerned, but one made my stomach drop. It was from my cousin Reese, who worked at the local bank where I had my business accounts. "Hey, someone came in asking questions about your accounts yesterday. Said they were your assistant. I didn't tell them anything but thought you should know." My bedroom was filled with soft morning light, dust particles dancing in the sunbeams coming through the blinds I'd forgotten to close. The contrast between the peaceful scene and the chaos unfolding on my phone screen was jarring. I sat up quickly, my heart pounding against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The text messages ranged from supportive to accusatory. "My mom, call me when you can. I'm worried about you." My Aunt Vivian, Talia's mother, "How could you do this to your own cousin? She's devastated." My Uncle Marcus, "Family handles things internally. You've crossed a line." My brother Jake, "Just heard what happened. You okay? Need me to come over?" I scrolled through them, my thumb moving frantically across the screen, each message increasing my anxiety. The room suddenly felt too warm, too small. I kicked off the covers and stood up, pacing the length of my small bedroom as I tried to process everything. I jumped out of bed and called Reese immediately. He confirmed Talia had shown up at the bank with a fake employee ID card, claiming she needed access to my accounts for emergency vendor payments. Thankfully, Reese knew about our family drama and refused to help her. She was really convincing, Reese said, his voice crackling slightly over the phone. I could hear the sounds of the bank in the background, muffled conversations, the beep of a security door. Had a business card with your logo and everything? If I didn't know what was going on, I might have believed her. What exactly did she ask for? I pressed, grabbing a notepad to write down details. Account numbers, online banking access, information about recent transactions. She said you were stuck in a meeting with a big potential retailer and needed to make an urgent payment to secure a deal. Reese paused. She even had a fake email from you on her phone that she tried to show me. My skin crawled at how prepared she'd been, how thoroughly she'd planned this attempt. Thank you for stopping her, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I can't even imagine what would have happened if she'd gained access. Family's complicated, Reese said with a sigh, but theft isn't. You did the right thing reporting her. I called my bank and added extra security measures to all my accounts. Just as I finished, an email notification alerted me that someone had attempted to reset my admin password multiple times on my website. I immediately logged in, checked everything, and changed all my passwords again. The bank representative was understanding but concerned. We're adding a verbal password to your account, she explained. Anyone trying to access it in person or by phone will need to provide this word, in addition to the usual identification. I chose a word that had no connection to me or my family, something Talia would never guess. After hanging up, I made a cup of strong coffee, the rich aroma filling my kitchen as I tried to calm my nerves. The morning sun streamed through the window above my sink, creating patterns on the countertop. Outside, I could hear birds chirping and a neighbor walking their dog, the world continuing normally while mine seemed to be crumbling. My laptop chimed with the email notification about password reset attempts. I logged into my website's admin panel, my fingers flying across the keyboard. The login attempt log showed 17 tries from 3 different IP addresses between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. Someone, Talia, obviously had been up all night trying to break into my site. I immediately implemented two-factor authentication, requiring both a password and a code sent to my phone for any login attempts. I updated all admin passwords, removed any lingering user accounts Talia might have created, and installed additional security plugins. The familiar actions of typing, clicking, and problem-solving helped calm my racing thoughts, giving me something concrete to focus on. Around noon, my doorbell rang. My Aunt Vivian was standing there with a folder in her hand. I opened the door just enough to talk through the gap. We need to talk about this ridiculous vendetta you have against my daughter, she said, waving the folder. I have proof that Talia was working on her own formulas before she ever worked for you. She stole my actual products, Vivian, not just the recipes or ideas, the physical products I made with my own hands. She's family. How could you do this to her? She's facing jail time because of you. She's facing jail time because she committed a crime, I said, against me, her family. Vivian thrust the folder at me. These are cease and desist papers. If you don't drop the charges and take down that horrible Facebook post, we're suing you for defamation. I took the folder without opening it. You should talk to a better lawyer. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Everything I posted is documented fact. Aunt Vivian stood on my welcome mat, her normally perfectly styled hair looking frazzled, dark circles under her eyes visible despite her makeup. She wore an expensive-looking blazer that seemed at odds with her distressed expression. Behind her, I could see her silver SUV parked haphazardly, taking up 2 spaces. You've always been jealous of Talia, she said, her voice rising. Ever since you were children. You couldn't stand that she was prettier, more popular. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Vivian, she stole from me. There's video evidence, bank records, witness statements. This isn't about childhood jealousy. She made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. Vivian's voice cracked. She's your blood. Doesn't that mean anything to you? A neighbor walked past, slowing down to watch our confrontation with poorly disguised interest. I lowered my voice. It meant something to me. That's why I gave her a job when no one else would. That's why I taught her my business, and she repaid me by stealing from me. Vivian's face hardened. If you go through with this, you're no longer welcome in our family. No holidays, no birthdays, nothing. You'll be cut off. The threat hung in the air between us. I thought about Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas mornings, the family reunions at my grandparents' lake house, all the traditions and connections that had defined my life. Then I thought about Talia's message. I'm not done. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said finally. But I won't be bullied or stolen from, not even by family. After she left, I found a bunch of printed recipes with dates manually written on them, clearly backdated to make it look like Talia had been developing skincare formulas for years. There was also a poorly written legal letter threatening me with a lawsuit. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. The folder contained about 20 pages of what appeared to be skincare formulas, printed on regular computer paper but with dates handwritten in the corners. The dates went back 3 years, well before Talia had started working for me, but the formulations themselves were suspicious. Some contained impossible combinations of ingredients that would never mix properly. Others listed percentages that added up to more than 100%. Most tellingly, several contained the exact typos and abbreviations I used in my own formula notebooks, mistakes, and shorthand that were unique to my documentation style. The legal letter was printed on generic letterhead from Morgan Family Legal Services, a firm that didn't exist. The language was filled with misspellings and incorrect legal terminology, threatening me with defamation charges, and demanding I pay Talia $25,000 for emotional distresses and lost business revenues. I scanned everything and emailed it to my actual lawyer, Maria, who had been helping me navigate the legal aspects of the case. Her response came within the hour. This is not a legitimate legal document. Do not engage or respond. We'll address this in our ongoing case. My business social media accounts were getting flooded with negative comments from newly created accounts, all claiming my products caused rashes, burns, or allergic reactions. Some even posted graphic photos clearly pulled from medical websites. This is insane, my friend Isla said, scrolling through the comments. It's obviously a coordinated attack. We spent hours reporting and deleting comments. I finally had to temporarily disable comments on all my posts and made a public statement explaining the harassment. Isla sat cross-legged on my couch, her dark curly hair piled on top of her head, her laptop balanced on her knees. The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow across my living room as we worked side by side, the sound of our typing filling the space. Outside, rain had started to fall, pattering against the windows in a rhythm that would normally be soothing, but now just added to my sense of being under siege. "Look at this one," Isla said, turning her screen toward me. "This account was created literally 2 hours ago and has already posted the same comment on 15 of your posts." The comment claimed my vitamin C serum had caused a severe chemical burn, accompanied by a graphic photo that a reverse image search quickly revealed came from a medical textbook about acid burns. "And here's another," she continued, pointing to a different account with no profile picture. "This one is claiming your body butter contains hidden ingredients, not listed on the label that caused an allergic reaction. But they've copied and pasted the exact same comment on every post. We reported each fake account, deleted the comments, and blocked the users. But they kept coming a new wave every few hours, as if someone was sitting at a computer creating accounts and posting continuously. We need to get ahead of this," Isla said, rubbing her tired eyes. It was nearly 9 p.m., and we'd been monitoring and cleaning up the accounts since mid-afternoon. "Make a statement before people start believing these fake reviews." I nodded, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. My phone kept buzzing with notifications from family members taking sides in the growing drama. My brother and parents were supportive, but extended family were largely rallying behind Talia, seeing her as the victim of my overreaction. I drafted a statement explaining the situation, keeping it factual and unemotional, and posted it across all my business social media accounts. I then temporarily disabled comments and put the accounts in monitored mode, where I would have to approve any new comments before they appeared publicly. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I discovered someone had contacted my suppliers claiming to be me, canceled my standing orders, and asked for refunds to different accounts. Someone had also created a website with a domain name very similar to mine, a complete ripoff with all my product photos but lower prices. The discovery came the next morning when I called my main ingredient supplier to check on an order of organic rosehip oil that was late arriving. "Oh, we canceled that order per your email request on Tuesday," the supplier representative said, confusion in her voice. "We processed the refund to the new account number you provided." My blood ran cold. I never sent that email. I never canceled any orders. There was a pause on the line. "Let me pull up the correspondence," she said. After a moment, "The email came from your business account. It said you were restructuring and needed to cancel all pending orders. There was a signed PDF with your letterhead and signature." I explained the situation, the theft, the ongoing harassment. The representative was sympathetic and promised to reinstate my orders, though the refunded money was gone, sent to an account I had no connection to. I spent the next 3 hours calling every supplier in my contact list, discovering that 5 more had received similar fraudulent cancellation requests. 3 had already processed refunds totaling nearly $4,000. Then a customer called, confused about pricing. "Your website says the night cream is $22, but when I ordered last month it was $40, she said. "Are you having a sale? What website are you looking at?" I asked. "Dread building. naturalglowbyyou.com, she replied. "That's you, right?" My actual website was naturalglowskincare.com. Someone, Talia, had created a nearly identical site with a slightly different URL. When I pulled it up, my heart sank. It was a perfect copy of my site, down to the about page and product descriptions, but with all prices slashed by almost 50%. The contact information led to an email address I didn't recognize. My cousin Keith called to tell me Talia and Aunt Vivian were hosting a business launch party for Talia's new skincare line. They'd invited the whole family to support Talia's entrepreneurial spirit. I spent that evening watching as family members posted photos from the party. The products looked exactly like mine, just with different labels. I felt physically sick seeing my mother in one of the photos, holding up one of Talia's stolen formulations with a proud smile. The betrayal cut deep, like a physical wound. Keith's voice was apologetic as he explained the situation. "I thought you should know," he said. The invitation said it was a Phoenix Rising theme, about Talia rebuilding after setbacks. I could hear the discomfort in his tone. Keith had always been one of the more level-headed members of the family, more interested in facts than drama. "Are you going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "No," he said firmly. "What she did to you was wrong. I told Aunt Vivian as much." After we hung up, I found myself compulsively checking social media, watching as photos from the party appeared in real time. The event was being held at Aunt Vivian's house, the living room decorated with pink and gold balloons and a banner reading, "Talia's Natural Beauty Launch." Tables displayed products and packaging eerily similar to mine, just with different colored labels. The most painful image appeared around 8 p.m., my mother standing next to Talia, both smiling widely, holding up a jar of what I recognized as my best-selling night cream formula. My mother's caption read, "So proud of my niece launching her own business. Family support, women entrepreneurs." I called my mother immediately, my hands shaking with hurt and anger. "Mom, how could you? You know what she did to me." "Honey, I'm just trying to keep the peace," she said, the sounds of the party audible in the background. "Family has to stick together through hard times." "She stole from me, Mom. She's selling my products, the ones I developed through years of research and testing." My mother sighed. "I know you're upset, but she's going through a difficult time. The charges you filed could ruin her life. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive and move forward?" The conversation left me feeling hollow and alone. I curled up on my couch, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm evening, and let the tears come. The betrayal by my own mother hurt worse than anything Talia had done. The family was dividing into camps. Some relatives believed Talia's lies that I had stolen her formulas originally. Others saw through it. My grandmother called me. Your grandfather and I didn't work our whole lives to raise thieves, she said firmly. I told your aunt as much last night. My grandmother's call came just as I was considering deleting all my social media accounts to escape the family drama. Her voice, strong despite her 86 years, was like a lifeline. I saw those pictures from Vivian's house, she said. Disgraceful, the lot of them. Your grandfather is so angry he won't even speak about it. I could picture my grandfather, a retired judge with an unwavering moral compass, sitting in his favorite armchair, jaw clenched in the way it always was when he was deeply disappointed. The image brought both comfort and sadness. I don't know what to do, Grandma, I admitted, my voice small. Half the family thinks I'm the villain in this story, then half the family needs their heads examined, she replied bluntly. Your grandfather and I didn't work our whole lives to raise thieves. I told your aunt as much last night when she had the nerve to call and invite us to that shameful party. Her unwavering support brought fresh tears to my eyes. Thank you for believing me. Truth doesn't require belief, dear. It stands on its own. Her voice softened. Now, have you eaten today? You always forget to eat when you're upset. The simple, grandmotherly concern broke through my despair, reminding me that not everyone had abandoned me. I promised her I would make dinner, and we talked a bit longer about non-family matters. Her garden, a book she was reading, the neighbor's new puppy that kept digging in her flower beds. As the court date approached, the attacks escalated. Someone left one-star reviews for my business on every platform possible. Customers received fake emails claiming to be from my company, saying orders were canceled due to product safety concerns, and directing them to Talia's shop. The one-star reviews appeared overnight, as if someone had stayed up all night posting them. Google, Yelp, Facebook, Instagram, even obscure review sites I'd never heard of, all suddenly featured scathing reviews claiming my products caused skin problems, arrived damaged, or never arrived at all. Each review used similar language, clearly written by the same person, despite the different account names. My phone started ringing early the next morning with concerned customers asking about emails they'd received. The fake message, designed to look like it came from my company, claimed, due to recent safety concerns and FDA investigations, all orders have been temporarily suspended. For similar products without safety issues, please visit naturalglowbyu.com. I spent hours on the phone reassuring customers, explaining the situation, and offering discounts on future orders to maintain goodwill. Zoe helped draft an official email to our entire customer list explaining the fraudulent messages and reaffirming the safety of our products. The day before court, my Aunt Vivian showed up at my door. She looked terrible, tired and stressed. Without a word, she handed me a USB drive. What's this? I asked. Evidence, she said, her voice flat. Talia's been lying to me. I found these on her computer when she left it open. It's all her plans to copy your business, screenshots of your customer database, everything. Why are you giving me this? Tears filled her eyes. Because she's doing the same thing to me now. She emptied my checking account yesterday, said she needed it for business expenses. When I questioned her, she screamed at me that I was never supportive enough. She wiped her eyes. I've been making excuses for her whole life, and I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry, she said quietly before leaving. Aunt Vivian stood in my doorway looking nothing like the polished, confident woman who had threatened me with legal action just days earlier. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, and she'd clearly been crying. The hallway light cast harsh shadows on her face, emphasizing the dark circles under her eyes and the new lines around her mouth. She took everything, Vivian continued, her voice barely above a whisper. My savings, my emergency fund, even the money I set aside for your cousin Emily's college tuition. She leaned against the door frame as if she might collapse without its support. When I confronted her, she said I owed her for all the years of not believing in her. I hesitated, then stepped back to let her in. My apartment was a mess. Papers spread across every surface, empty coffee cups littering the counter, evidence of my frantic preparation for the court hearing. Vivian sat heavily on my couch, looking around as if seeing the space for the first time. I've been so blind, she said, staring at her hands. All these years, making excuses. When she stole from her school, I said she was just forgetful. When she took money from my purse, I convinced myself I had misremembered how much was there. She looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed. I failed her by never setting boundaries, and I failed you by not believing you. I sat across from her, unsure what to say. The USB drive felt heavy in my hand. Everything you need is on there, she said. Bank statements showing transfers from my account to hers, documents where she outlined her plan to copy your business, even recordings of phone calls where she bragged to friends about how she was going to take over your customer base. Why didn't you believe me before? I asked, the question that had been burning inside me for weeks. Vivian's shoulders slumped, because admitting she would do that meant admitting I failed as a mother, that all the times before when people accused her of stealing or lying, they were right, and I couldn't face that. A tear slid down her cheek. I'm facing it now. That night, I received a threatening text with a photo of my apartment building. I immediately called the police, who advised me to stay elsewhere. I packed a bag and went to Isla's. The text came just before midnight. The photo showed the front entrance of my building, clearly taken that evening. The same UPS package that had been sitting by the door all day was visible in the corner of the image. The message read, "Sweet dreams knowing I can find you whenever I want." My hands shook so badly I could barely dial the police. The dispatcher advised me to leave immediately and file a report in the morning. I threw essentials into a backpack, laptop, chargers, toiletries, a change of clothes, and called Isla. I'm on my way, she said immediately, no questions asked. Stay on the phone with me until I get there. I stood by my window, peering through the blinds at the street below, searching for any sign of someone watching the building. The normally peaceful nighttime scene, streetlights casting pools of yellow light, the occasional car passing now seemed menacing. Every shadow could be hiding someone waiting for me. Isla arrived 15 minutes later, texting me when she was outside rather than using the building's intercom. I slipped out the back entrance, heart pounding, and practically ran to her waiting car. Her apartment was a third-floor walk-up in a secure building with a doorman. The space was smaller than mine but felt infinitely safer with its deadbolt, chain lock, and peephole. We pushed her coffee table in front of the door anyway, an extra precaution that helped calm my frayed nerves. "You can stay as long as you need," Isla said, making up her couch with sheets and a blanket. "No one's getting past Roberto downstairs anyway. That man takes his doorman duties very seriously." Despite her reassurances, I barely slept, startling at every noise: the hum of the refrigerator, the radiator clicking on, a car horn in the distance. When morning finally came, I felt exhausted but relieved to have made it through the night. In court the next morning, I arrived with my lawyer, my brother, and Isla for support. Talia came with my Uncle Marcus, looking confident until she saw her mother standing with me. Her face fell. The courthouse was an imposing stone building with high ceilings and echoing hallways. My footsteps sounded unnaturally loud on the polished floor as we made our way to the courtroom. My lawyer, Maria, walked beside me, her presence reassuring. She carried a leather briefcase containing all our evidence, including the USB drive Vivian had provided. The courtroom itself was smaller than I'd expected, with wooden benches and fluorescent lighting that cast everyone in an unflattering pallor. I sat at the plaintiff's table, trying to appear calm despite the anxiety churning in my stomach. My brother Jake sat directly behind me, his hand occasionally squeezing my shoulder in silent support. When Talia entered with Uncle Marcus, she was wearing a conservative navy dress that made her look younger and more innocent. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup, a stark contrast to her usual heavily made-up appearance. It was a calculated image, designed to portray herself as harmless and wrongfully accused. The confidence in her walk faltered when she spotted her mother sitting on my side of the courtroom. Confusion, then betrayal, flashed across her face. Uncle Marcus leaned down to whisper something in her ear, his expression darkening as he noticed his wife's presence among my supporters. My lawyer presented all our evidence, including the security footage, fake damage reports, and the USB drive, which contained spreadsheets tracking which of my products sold best, emails to suppliers where she pretended to be me, and even a document titled, "How to Take Over My Name's Business." Maria was methodical and thorough, her voice calm as she presented item after item of damning evidence. The security footage was particularly effective: clear video, showing Talia placing products in her bag after hours, checking to make sure no one was watching. The judge, a woman in her 60s with silver-rimmed glasses and an attentive expression, took detailed notes throughout the presentation. The spreadsheet from the USB drive was projected onto a screen for the court to see. Column after column detailed my best-selling products, profit margins, and customer demographics. One section was titled Vulnerability Assessment, where Talia had analyzed which aspects of my business would be easiest to replicate and which customers might be most easily swayed to switch to a cheaper alternative. Most disturbing was the document titled How to Take Over My Name's Business, which outlined a three-phase plan. First, learn everything about my operation while building trust. Second, gradually siphon inventory and replicate products. Third, undercut my prices while spreading rumors about product quality to drive customers away from my business and toward hers. When it was Talia's turn, she completely changed tactics, crying and claiming she'd only taken a few samples because she was desperate with student loans. The judge saw through it. Then came the shocking revelation. Talia had done this before at her previous job. They hadn't ghosted her. She'd been caught stealing inventory and reselling it online. Talia's performance was almost convincing, her voice trembling, tears welling in her eyes as she claimed she'd only taken a few product samples to practice making her own versions at home. "I was drowning in student loan debt," she said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "I just needed to make some extra money while I learned the business." Her lawyer, a young man who seemed uncomfortable with the case, tried to paint her actions as a misunderstanding between family members rather than deliberate theft. "This is a civil matter that should have been resolved privately," he argued. "My client admits to taking a few items but denies any systematic theft or fraud." The judge's expression remained neutral until the prosecutor introduced evidence from Talia's previous employer, a small boutique where she had worked as a sales associate. The owner testified via video call that Talia had been fired after they discovered she was stealing merchandise and selling it online through various marketplace apps. They had chosen not to press charges at the time, wanting to avoid the hassle of legal proceedings. "So she wasn't ghosted by her previous employer as she claimed to you?" the prosecutor asked me. "No," I replied. "She told me they stopped scheduling her without explanation and wouldn't return her calls." The judge found Talia guilty on all counts: theft, fraud, and criminal impersonation. 6 months in jail, 3 years probation, and full restitution. She lost control, screaming that I'd ruined her life as they led her away. My Uncle Marcus stormed out, slamming the door. When the judge announced the verdict, the courtroom fell silent for a moment before Talia's reaction shattered the quiet, her face contorted with rage, all pretense of remorse vanishing instantly. "You bitch!" she screamed, lunging toward me before the court officer grabbed her arms. "You've ruined my life, after everything I did for you." The officer struggled to restrain her as she continued shouting, "This isn't over. You think you've won? You've ruined my life over some stupid face cream." My Uncle Marcus stood up, his face flushed with anger. He pointed at Aunt Vivian. "You betrayed your own daughter," he spat. "What kind of mother are you?" Then he turned to me. "And you're dead to this family. Dead." He stormed out, the heavy courtroom door slamming behind him with a bang that made everyone jump. As they led Talia away, still shouting threats and accusations, I sat frozen in my chair. The victory felt hollow. My lawyer squeezed my shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. "Remember that." Outside the courthouse, reporters from the local news and a few industry blogs waited, having caught wind of the unusual case. My lawyer fielded most of their questions while I stood silently beside her, exhausted and emotionally drained. When we returned to my apartment, we found my door wide open and the place trashed. My laptop was gone, product samples smashed, and someone had spray-painted "thief" across my living room wall. The police found my uncle's fingerprints and blood drops at the scene. The sight of my violated apartment hit me like a physical blow. The door hung open, the lock clearly forced. Inside, chaos reigned. My couch cushions had been slashed, white stuffing spilling out like snow across the floor. The coffee table was overturned, its glass top shattered into thousands of glittering shards. Every shelf had been swept clean, books and decorative items lying broken on the floor. My workspace had suffered the worst damage. Glass jars of ingredients had been smashed against the walls, their contents creating a slippery, fragrant mess on the floor. Bottles of essential oils, some worth over $100 for a tiny amount, had been emptied, their powerful scents combining into an overwhelming, headache-inducing miasma. Across the largest wall, spanning nearly 6 feet in bright red spray paint, was the word "thief." The police arrived quickly, taking photographs and collecting evidence. An officer pointed out blood droplets near the broken window, and what appeared to be a partial fingerprint in the still wet spray paint. "Whoever did this cut themselves," she explained, photographing the blood evidence. "And they were angry enough to be careless about leaving evidence." I stood in the doorway, unable to step fully into what had once been my sanctuary. My brother put his arm around my shoulders. "You can stay with me until this is cleaned up," he said. "I'll help you fix everything." The next day, I received a call from Talia in jail, offering to take the blame for my uncle's vandalism if I dropped the restitution requirement. I refused and reported the call. The call came through as unknown number, but I recognized Talia's voice immediately. She sounded different, subdued, the bravado gone from her tone. "I know Marcus trashed your place," she said without preamble. "He came to see me right after and had cuts all over his hands." I said nothing, just listened as she continued. "I can give you a signed statement saying he did it. I'll take full responsibility for everything, the vandalism, the fake reviews, all of it." She paused. "But I want something in return." "What?" I finally asked, though I already knew what was coming. "Drop the restitution requirement. I can't pay back $18,000 plus damages. It's impossible. I'll be in debt forever." The restitution amount had been calculated based on the value of stolen inventory, lost business due to her actions, and the cost of security upgrades I'd been forced to implement. It was actually a conservative estimate of the true financial impact. "You should have thought about that before stealing from me," I said. "Come on," she pleaded, her voice taking on the wheedling tone I recognized from childhood when she wanted something. "We're family. You know I'm good for nothing in here. At least out there I could try to make something of myself." "You had that chance when I gave you a job," I replied. "You chose to steal instead." "Fine," she snapped, the facade of contrition vanishing instantly. "Enjoy your trashed apartment. Marcus is just getting started." I reported the call to both the jail authorities and my lawyer. The attempt to negotiate and the implied threat from my uncle were added to the case file. Even from jail, Talia continued her campaign. Someone flooded my social media with claims that my products contained harmful ingredients, posting photos of rashes and burns. I discovered Talia had been granted computer access for an online class and was using that time to attack my business. Later, she got a letter smuggled out to a friend who contacted my suppliers claiming to be from a consumer protection agency. The social media attacks came in waves, usually in the evenings between 7 and 9 p.m., exactly when Talia had computer access for her online business class in jail. The posts were sophisticated and clearly pre-planned, with multiple fake accounts posting similar stories about alleged skin reactions at the same time, creating the illusion of a widespread problem. My web developer tracked the activity and confirmed that many of the posts were coming from the same IP address, the county jail's computer lab. Others came from addresses associated with Talia's friends, particularly a woman named Desiree, who had been her roommate briefly before she came to work for me. The letter to my suppliers was particularly damaging, printed on fake letterhead from a non-existent Consumer Product Safety Commission. Similar to but legally distinct from the actual CPSC, it claimed my products were under investigation for potentially harmful ingredients and advised suppliers to reconsider their business relationships. 3 smaller suppliers temporarily suspended my accounts while they investigated the claims, causing production delays and customer backorders. I worked with my lawyer to send cease and desist letters to everyone involved, including Desiree. We also contacted the jail administrator with evidence of Talia's misuse of computer privileges. Her online class access was temporarily suspended pending investigation. Finally, the jail caught Talia trying to smuggle more letters through another inmate. They searched her cell, found a notebook full of plans to destroy my business, and put her in solitary confinement. With her cut off, the attack stopped. I used the break to rebuild. I launched a new product line, hired trustworthy employees, and redesigned my packaging. 3 months later, my business was doing better than ever. The rebuilding process began with a complete deep cleaning of my apartment and workspace. Friends and family, the ones who had stood by me, showed up with cleaning supplies, paint, and determination. My brother Jake and his girlfriend spent an entire weekend helping me repaint walls and repair damaged furniture. My grandmother sent her handyman to install new, more secure locks and reinforce the windows. The product development process, which had always been my favorite part of the business, became therapeutic. I channeled my anger and hurt into creativity, developing a new line of products that represented growth and resilience. The Phoenix Collection, as I named it, featured ingredients known for their regenerative properties: sea buckthorn oil, tamanu oil, and helichrysum essential oil. I hired 2 new employees, both with impressive references and backgrounds in cosmetic science. The hiring process was rigorous, involving multiple interviews and a trial period. I was determined never to be vulnerable to insider theft again. The new packaging design moved away from the pink and gold aesthetic Talia had copied, embracing a sleek, modern look with deep teal and copper accents. Each product came with a small card explaining its ingredients and the story behind its development, creating a personal connection with customers that couldn't be easily replicated. Talia served her 6 months. Before her release, she sent me a letter. "I'm sorry. I was jealous of what you built. I wanted it for myself without doing the work. I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't blame you. I'm moving to Colorado after this to start fresh. You won't hear from me again." I renewed my restraining order anyway. My Aunt Vivian confirmed Talia was indeed moving to Colorado, but wisely said, "I'm keeping my distance until she proves it with actions, not words." The letter arrived in a plain white envelope, the jail's return address stamped in the corner. The paper was thin, institutional quality, and Talia's handwriting was smaller and neater than I remembered. The apology seemed sincere, acknowledging specific wrongs rather than making vague statements of remorse. She explained that jail therapy sessions had helped her recognize her patterns of entitlement and dishonesty. "I always thought you had everything handed to you," she wrote. "It was easier to believe that than to admit you worked hard for your success while I was looking for shortcuts." Despite the apparently genuine tone, I wasn't taking any chances. I forwarded the letter to my lawyer and filed paperwork to extend the restraining order that was set to expire upon her release. The judge granted it without hesitation, given the extensive history of harassment and threats. Aunt Vivian called to tell me Talia had indeed purchased a one-way ticket to Denver. "She claims she has a friend there who can get her a job at a health food store," Vivian explained. Her voice sounded tired but more grounded than I'd heard it in years. "I paid for the ticket on the condition that she stick with her therapy and stay away from the family until she can prove she's changed." "Do you believe she has?" I asked. There was a long pause. "I want to," Vivian finally said, "but I've wanted to believe her before. I'm keeping my distance until she proves it with actions, not words." A year later, my business had expanded to a small warehouse. My grandfather had passed away, but one of the last things he told me was how proud he was that I stood up for myself. "Never let anyone steal your light," he'd said. The warehouse was a major milestone, a 2,000 square foot space with proper ventilation systems, dedicated areas for different stages of production, and a small office area where I could meet with suppliers and potential retail partners. The concrete floors were sealed and polished to a soft sheen, and large windows let in natural light that made the space feel open and creative. My grandfather had visited the space just 2 weeks before he passed away. At 88, he had moved slowly, leaning on his cane as I showed him around, but his eyes had been sharp and attentive, taking in every detail. He had asked specific questions about production capacity and inventory management, his legal mind still precise despite his failing health. As we sat in the small break room I'd set up for employees, he had taken my hand in his papery skin over prominent veins, but still strong. "You know what I'm most proud of?" he'd asked. "Not this business, impressive as it is. I'm proud that you didn't let her steal your light." I'd looked at him questioningly. "Your spirit," he'd explained. "Your confidence, your belief in yourself. That's what thieves like Talia really want to take, not just your things, but your light, your sense that you deserve good things." He'd squeezed my hand. "You protected that. That's the real victory." He passed away peacefully in his sleep 3 days later. At his funeral, I wore a small vial of the custom cologne I'd made him last Christmas, the scent of cedar and bergamot, a comforting reminder of his presence. I'd learned the hard way that family isn't just about blood, it's about respect, support, and trust. Some relatives had shown they weren't really family at all. Others had stepped up in ways I never expected. My brother Jake, who had always been somewhat distant as we pursued different life paths, became my strongest ally. He helped me move into the warehouse, built custom shelving for my inventory, and even invested in the business as a silent partner when I was ready to expand. Aunt Vivian, after decades of enabling Talia's behavior, found her own strength. She filed for divorce from Uncle Marcus, started therapy, and eventually opened a small bookstore, something she'd always dreamed of doing, but had put aside for her family's demands. We met for coffee every few weeks, rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of honesty, rather than obligatory family ties. My mother eventually apologized for attending Talia's product launch, though our relationship remained strained. "I thought I was keeping the peace," she explained during a tense lunch. "I didn't understand that sometimes peace comes at too high a price. The family will never be the same. Holiday gatherings are smaller now. My Uncle Marcus moved across the country after serving his time. My Aunt Vivian rebuilt her life and seems happier than ever. Thanksgiving dinner, once a chaotic affair with 30-plus relatives crowded around extended tables, became an intimate gathering of those who had stood by me, my parents, still working through their own issues, Jake and his girlfriend, Aunt Vivian, my grandmother, and a few cousins who had supported me throughout the ordeal. The smaller group allowed for real conversations, rather than the surface-level interactions that had characterized larger family events. Uncle Marcus served 3 months for the vandalism of my apartment and paid substantial restitution. Upon release, he moved to Florida, where he had a brother we rarely spoke about. He occasionally sent cards to his children, but made no attempt to contact the rest of the family. Aunt Vivian flourished in her new independence. Her bookstore became a community hub, hosting reading groups and local author events. The stress lines that had marked her face for years softened, and she developed a quiet confidence that was beautiful to witness. "I spent decades trying to fix other people's problems," she told me once. "Turns out the only person I needed to fix was myself. As for me, I learned that standing up for yourself might cost you some relationships, but the ones that remain are stronger for it. And sometimes, the family you choose is more reliable than the one you're born into." My chosen family expanded to include Isla, who had stood by me through the worst of the ordeal, Zoe, whose loyalty to the business never wavered, and Maria, my lawyer, who became a trusted advisor and friend. We celebrated business milestones together, supported each other through personal challenges, and created new traditions that had nothing to do with blood ties and everything to do with mutual respect and care. The experience changed how I approached relationships of all kinds. I became more cautious, yes, but also more appreciative of genuine connections. I learned to recognize red flags earlier, and to trust my instincts when something felt wrong. Most importantly, I stopped apologizing for having boundaries and enforcing them. I still make every batch of product myself, though now I have help with packaging and shipping. Every jar represents not just my business, but my refusal to be bullied, stolen from, or intimidated. Each sale is a small victory. The production process remained sacred to me, a time when I could focus entirely on creation, rather than the business aspects of running a company. I still measured ingredients precisely, still tested new formulations on my own skin before offering them to customers, still felt a surge of satisfaction watching raw ingredients transform into something beautiful and beneficial. My hands, often dry from frequent washing between batches, became a point of pride rather than vanity. These were working hands, capable hands, hands that built something from nothing and then defended it when threatened. The business continued to grow steadily. 3 major retailers now carried a selection of my products. The website received orders from all 50 states and 6 countries. Industry blogs featured my story as an example of entrepreneurial resilience. Family's family, sure, but business is business, and no one gets to steal either one from me. I sometimes think about Talia, wondering if she really did start fresh in Colorado or if she found new victims for her schemes. According to Aunt Vivian, she was working at that health food store and taking classes at a community college. I hope, for her sake and for others, that she truly changed. But I no longer feel responsible for her choices or their consequences. My grandmother, now in her late 80s but still sharp as ever, summed it up best during one of our weekly phone calls. Family is a privilege, not a right. Being related by blood doesn't entitle anyone to your trust that has to be earned and maintained, just like any other relationship. As I locked up the warehouse one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, that reminded me of my original product packaging, I felt a sense of peace that had been hard-won. The journey had been painful, but I emerged stronger, wiser, and surrounded by people who truly deserve to be called family, some related by blood, others by choice, all connected by respect and love. And that, I realized, was the most valuable thing I'd protected, not just my business, but my right to define family on my own terms.